FM News Talk 97.1.
On-demand audio.
A man walks into a poll location in Washington, D.C. and asks about United States Attorney General Eric Holder. The poll worker places a mark next to Eric Holder's name and offers the man Eric Holder's ballot to vote.
Hello. Do you have an Eric Holder?
Check it out here.
Northwest?
For the next election, we are told you'll get one that has some No. Well, they did for early voting.
H-O-L-T-E-R or D-E-R?
H-O-L-D-E-R?
Like the Attorney General.
That's the name.
Just like his.
And you were a Democrat, and you wanted to pay.
I did.
He's sharing
Northwest,
the address.
that's the address.
Okay.
Last name?
Please sign me there.
I actually forgot my ID.
You don't need it, it's all right.
I left it in the car.
As long as you're in here, you're on our list. And
You say you're
you
Eric
say
Holder,
you
we
are.
believe you.
Okay.
I would feel more comfortable.
Yeah, fascinating stuff. And this exact thing that just happened in Project Veritas's latest video, headed up by James O'Keefe, is what Eric Holder, our Attorney General over at the DOJ, denies exists. He says this sort of voter fraud just doesn't happen. And joining me on the phone right now with Project Veritas, James O'Keefe. James, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. Great to be on your program again.
It's good to speak with you. This video I thought was brilliant, and I thought it was funny too, because when the gentleman in the video walks away, he says, "I'll be back faster than you can say furious." And not at any point in this video do the people who are working the polls have any idea that, no, they just think some guy named Eric Holder is just coming up to vote. And this, there's so many, just all of the narratives that are dispelled by just this one video are overwhelming. What has, and of course, you know, I've only seen one response from, I think it was New York Magazine, we just discussed this, that tried to say, oh, well, it was pointless voter fraud. That's what they called this. What is your response to something like that when someone says, well, you know, what James O'Keefe is doing is just showing, you know, some pointless voter fraud? I don't really think it's pointless.
Well, I mean, the mainstream media is never going to love us, but I think the reaction I'm seeing from this one, I don't think that even the New York Magazine piece was somewhat complimentary. You know, yeah, I guess they are showing flaws in the system. They're just sort of, then they have to make the ridiculous argument that, but no one actually voted. And the analogy
Uh-oh, James, are you there? There you
basically showing a bank vault door swung wide open, money coming out of the windows.
Right.
And, you know, clearly in an election of this magnitude, there are going to be people cheating. So, yeah, they're always going to be critical. But I think, frankly, you know, I just saw Dave Weigel just tweeted, you know, well played, James O'Keefe. But people are sort of coming around to this, and I think it's starting to get some mainstream media credibility.
Well, and that's been what the media narrative, not just the media narrative, but what Democrats have been saying for so long, that voter fraud doesn't exist and that something like this definitely doesn't exist. And you've proven definitively time and time again that it does. And you've had you've had some legislative success as a result with New Hampshire. What was the reaction in Vermont? What was the end result of that?
You know, the Vermont people don't really have too much, they aren't the most moderate of individuals, and they just want to investigate me. The Secretary of State and the Attorney General both said they want to investigate me for a misdemeanor for misrepresenting myself, even though I did not misrepresent myself. But the other two states, you know, March 7th, the New Hampshire State Senate voted and passed the voter ID law, and also in Minnesota they passed a constitutional amendment. So I don't understand why journalists haven't done this yet, but getting this stuff on video is having a huge impact in the state legislatures.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And you also say in the video that there are more, and you know, obviously I want to wait for the videos to come out for us to see them so you don't give it all away, but can you say how many times you've done this in this particular series, and or at least how many well-known celebrity political or just celebrity names that you dropped in these videos where people just bought it just because you walked in and said, we are who we, you know, do you have a ballot for so-and-so?
Yeah, we don't want to mention how many names, because one of the things that, you know, Breitbart used to do and that I love to do is to see how the establishment reacts to this. If they try to lie, obfuscate, cover up, and all the things they ordinarily do. So I want to give them a chance to lie and trip over themselves before I release that information. But we do have a number of other videos showing not just John Does and Jane Does in Vermont, but huge political names in the district, in Washington, D.C., people on media, people in government, people who have been opposed to voter ID, you name it, all of whom ballots were handed out to other individuals. And you see some teaser clips in there where a guy says, I don't even sign, my arm is broken or whatever, and, don't worry about it, just I'll sign for you and give you the ballot. So just the most outrageous, most fraudulent things you can imagine, and we're going to be releasing those videos shortly.
What sort of effect do you think this has on the narrative that Democrats and individuals like Al Sharpton have said for a very long time that photo ID for voting is racist? And here I was looking at Matt Drudge's headline, "White Man takes Eric Holder's ballot." What sort of effect does that have on their narrative? It
totally disrupts the narrative, and that is the single most I guess that is what brings me so much joy in doing what I do, because it just tears apart media narratives. Everything that we do tends to do that. We attempt to do that. And, a white man, a young white man, handed about by another white man in the name of a 61-year-old African-American, the most powerful legal position in the country is being handed out to a young, white guy with a scruffy beard. And I can't imagine. I just wish I could get more of these things actually on tape, because the impact it has when you catch it on video, it cuts through narratives. And I'm hoping that the Justice Department responds to this. I know that there are some phone calls being put into them, and they're not answering. I hope that they issue a statement, because this contradicts everything the Attorney General has said.
And this, obviously, I hope that this prompts them to act on this, because this has been something that the Department of Justice, J. Christian Adams, we've had him on the show regularly, and he's discussed all of the ways that the Department of Justice hasn't really, they refuse to uphold voter integrity. I mean, just going state by state, and the Secretary of State's having to purge the voter rolls, and then they say that something like this doesn't exist, and they argue the opposite of what you see in this video, that they suggest that requiring photo ID disenfranchises the voter somehow, which, of course, you have illustrated the opposite. And of course, you say that they're putting in calls to the Department of Justice. Are you expecting any sort of reaction at all? How should Eric Holder react from your perspective?
He should admit that he's wrong. I mean, we put in the video clips of him being interviewed saying there is no proof. And one of the most effective things about this video is, they talk about Alinsky, you hear Alinsky this, Alinsky that. One of the things Alinsky said was, pick the target and personalize it. We've personalized it just about as much as you can possibly personalize something, by going after the guy's own ballot in his own ward on Nebraska Avenue in the District of Columbia. So he should come out and he should say that he's wrong. I don't think he's going to do that. I think the only thing that the establishment can do, the only thing they can do, is ignore it. If they come after me, or if they come after my colleagues, if they try to prosecute me, I don't think that's in their interest to do that.
No.
Because judging from the reaction, I'm seeing hundreds of thousands of tweets, thousands of emails. I think people are going to stand behind us on this one, and going to do whatever it takes to fend off attacks from them. So I think the only thing they can do, Dana, is attempt to ignore this.
Well, and I think what your videos show as well is that you are doing the work of exposing this and trying to, as much as a citizen can, and unappointed to a position like this, a citizen can, to do what the Department of Justice won't do. And, of course, I don't want you to have to get all legal, because I don't know everything that you're dealing with and, back channel, but from my perspective, for anyone for Democrats to go after you over this, or for the Department of Justice to go after you over this, wouldn't it compromise their inability to do their job where it concerns voter integrity?
Would it compromise the journalist's job?
No, Eric Holder's. Like, for instance, in the new Black Panther Party, voter intimidation, and then the requirements of Secretary of State's to purge the deceased and the felons from their voter rolls, which they don't, and he doesn't call them to do. That would sort of compromise that and blow that all open, would it not?
Yeah, I mean, I think that at the very least they should purge the dead people from the rolls. I think the Pew came out and said, the Pew Research Center said there were 1.8 million dead people who are still registered to vote. I think this is a winning issue, and of all the things I've ever done, of all the things that I've done in NPR, Medicaid, when you name it, this has really affected people in a way that I've never seen. I think people, it's like they can't trust their own vote. What else in society could you possibly care about if you can't even elect people to change the system? So I think this is a winning issue for us, and we should hammer this year. I think we should really get out I'm going to make as many videos as I possibly can on this subject, because every time I do, it has an impact and it affects legislatures and government officials. Just be interesting to see if the Attorney General reacts to this. I hope he does.
I hope he does too, and I think also you scored a victory just right out of the gate with this, because as you said earlier, liberals now are acknowledging at least that fraud was committed, not that fraud was committed when the potential exists, because people do not require other voters coming forward to prove that they are who they say they are. So they're acknowledging that you exposed something already. So that's the first win that I see in this.
There is one story I saw today, a blog entry, a site called Winning Our Future, and the guy's name is Dave Johnson. It's prosecute voter fraud, make an example. So they're saying there exists no voter fraud, but then they have to say prosecute O'Keefe for committing voter fraud. So their narrative is in a complete blender, and they don't know what to say. Any reaction they give helps us. This is really a fascinating moment in the mainstream media. Anything that they do, anything that they say, is going to hurt their narrative at this point.
Right. Well, James, you've done a fantastic job with this. And, folks, you can go see the video over at Breitbart.com. James O'Keefe, Project Veritas. James, thanks so much for all you do. And we look forward to the other upcoming videos.
I look forward to releasing them. Thank you.
All right. Take care. Thanks so much.